Healing can be many things in its manifestations. You've got to be aware that it could be retracing. And you don't know really necessarily where that's going to end. How it's going to move about, you know, what it's going to go through, what you're going to go through, and how it's going to end. But it will end good. You don't know when it's going to end, I should say. You don't know when you're going to get back to pieces of yourself that you recognise as being more important to you, more dear to you than others, maybe. But if you start from the spirit, if you start from the soul, and they don't have to be divided if you talk about the true spirit, if you talk about the true essence, because then it's united, isn't it? If you've got true spirit, you're with your soul. That will be the implication. Or it includes the soul. At what extent? Depending on how you're expressing yourself at the moment. But you don't need to make a distinction. I'd say always live from your soul. Have the true spirit and the soul. The word cuts between the spirit and the soul because they are separate factors. Spirit is like the energy of what's going on around you and within you. And the perception of it is related to what you need and what you want. As to how far that extends. You've got to think about the psyche as the governor of that, because that's the question of how far you're going to look into the spirit of a place versus what effect you're having on that place, if any, at a given time. So the pertinence of mind, the roundness of mind, is an innate genius which we can attribute to the psyche as just a perceiving organ or faculty, I should say. Because that's just a name that we give it. But if you just call it perception. So okay, we perceive how much we are to ask about how much we're influencing the spirit. We perceive how much that we're going to look into that. Because we feel it. You could also split up the mood and the mood, the modern mood. Because you could say that feelings are separable from the link of the psyche and the spirit. Some people like to say that emotions are energy in motion. So they separate feelings again into biological constructs. A construction based on biology, based on physiology. But give me the man that perceives himself accurately in terms of biology. It has to be the whole. It's not enough to say, okay, well I feel a pain in my liver, so therefore I know everything about what's going on right now. If you know everything about what's going on right now, then maybe you'd be looking beyond that pain into what actually works for you. What we've got to get out of is not being who we are in a way that's repressed, like a fire that's not really taking on. We've got to be who we are, but that's a question of how much energy you've really got versus how much you want. So that's why I'm talking about retracing, because sometimes it happens that the illnesses that you have gathered need to go through a certain rewinding process that can seem like it's exacerbating those illnesses. But if you're in the spirit, you will dodge a lot of that. It may be even all of that you will dodge. But the retracing is then just getting back bits of yourself, just seeing it returning. And that can be maybe a long road, but you've got to be aware of demonic influences that are holding you back in those regards. So you've got to try and get all in. We're looking for all in, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for what will get us above the waterline. But of course, if we don't see the way the waves are going to move, we could end up under again. We need a boat. We need a boat. And that boat can be anything. It could be the word of the Lord, a guarantee, a promise. It could be the confidence based on what things we've learned already. I'm just willing to lean on that. Rather than saying, well, it's all up in the air. Because Scripture can be all up in the air. Who was Jesus Christ can be all up in the air. What do I know can be all up in the air. But if it's not supposed to be, maybe we'll get tormented by conscience, or maybe God will just step back a bit from helping us. Because there's something we need to see. It's earning it, really, if you think about it. Something we need to see. The devil's an opportunist anyway. Maybe we've not been living happily or healthily enough. The devil may have been on us a long time. It may have been a simulated devil, so that we were just, who were liminally righteous, were avoiding trouble in the future and or presently. It can all be a big mystery. The factors that are involved, I mean, you can credit them, you can account them, and you can pick up on them, and you can make it your task to pick up on them, and you can record them all. But you must be rightly related. That's why the dogma asserts itself, because the dogma is about being pure enough to keep up with yourself, to keep up with your conscience, to keep up with the social conscience, to keep up with the conscience that's based on fear versus expectation, hope of reward, hope of good. What we think might happen that's wrong versus what we think could happen that's right. That's where conscience comes in. That means knowing. It means what is there to know? Do I know enough? If the conscience is racked all the time, you might get used to it, but what will alleviate your mood? What's the right way to go? What do you want to do? What do you believe in? What's missing? This is the wrestle. This is the task. In any situation like what I'm in. So you just try and sharpen it as much as you can. You don't want to sharpen it too quickly because you think maybe then you'll break the lead. It will become dislodged. But you want to bring as much as you can bring because you know that it's imperative. You can see the devils. You're above the waterline, you can see them. You're not blurry-eyed. You can see them. But, your peace is the world's peace. So if you're in a good peace, then maybe that'll be a good thing. But beware a Luciferian peace. Beware the kind of peace that seems like it's good, but you're just coasting it in Lucifer. Lucifer can be considered a word for Satan's subtle aspect, and of course it leads into the stronger aspect, and that's why it's so insidious. The whole society is Luciferian. It's based on personal light, knowledge without righteousness. Without that is divine right relation. So the society has gone Lucifer, and of course the usury system selects for venality, and that selects for bad law, and that selects for ignorance in the populace. Nationally and internationally we see ignorance everywhere, absence of knowledge of the truth. So we're not supported enough by anybody. And nobody makes time to look into the truth about other things like secular medicine and how it could be better. So we're up against it because the prevalence of the truth is not very strong. You can call generic things the truth, like the Christian church, the idea of the blood of the Lamb and everything like that. But that doesn't satisfy a soul like mine, which is looking for knowledge and experiences. And I recognise that God has the right discretion, He has the right discernment to know how much to let forth, and it's based on many factors. And that's what I've got to get into, It said in the scripture, seek me with your whole heart, and you'll find me. I think that was Jeremiah, written in Jeremiah. So we're looking for answers inside of a storm. And we know how to calm the storm, but we don't want a secular peace, we don't want a Luciferian peace, is what I'm saying. And that's the same thing, because they're susceptible as much as they are susceptible. So strengthen yourself, strengthen yourself in the Spirit, be in the divine Spirit. And don't think that has to be about evangelism, but it will be in as much as it is. You'll be talking about things, you've got to stand in the truth.